Hello everyone, we're going to talk about a survey design this week. There will be 2 lectures on survey design. This is the first one. Survey research is actually very common. Anytime you systematically ask people about their attitudes, behaviors, you are doing a survey research. You complete a survey to evaluate your professor every semester. That's type of survey. And you hear about public opinion surveys on the news all the time. And if your major is public relations or advertising, you know that product and service satisfaction survey is very common as well. The primary goals for survey research are to identify, describe attitudes or behaviors first, and also examine relationships between variables measured. Sometimes people want to find out, is X factor related to Y, or can we use A, B, C, like 3 factors together to predict or correlate with the outcome factor that we care about. It may sound abstract now, but when we have more examples later, you will understand. There are different types of survey questions. The first type will be open-ended. So the participants will be able to write down their response as long as they want. You can get more details that way, and you don't have to predict what type of response they would give you before you ask the question, which is what you have to do with close-ended questions. But it's also very time-consuming to analyze the data. So when we're doing an assignment for this class, please do not use open-ended questions on your survey. And the next type is what we're going to focus on. It's close-ended questions. So participants choose from responses. There will be uniform responses allowed for easy comparability and a quick analysis. If everyone have to answer whether they are they are absolutely satisfied with the product or absolutely dissatisfied with the product, then you can compare their answers. If you're saying, do you agree with the following statement that I feel happy most of the time, and then people have to answer on the scale from strongly disagree to strongly agree, then you can compare between 2 persons that who is happier. So really close-ended questions are the one we will use more frequently in this class anyway. But you also may force your respondents to choose a response they do not agree with. Let's say, I feel like I can't really evaluate my opinion on a scale from 1 to 10. It's just too abstract for me to deal with. I have to pick one because that's all I'm dealing with. So this may happen from time to time, but we think that's a small disadvantage that we have to deal with in order to get more comparable responses with close-ended questions. So yes, it's not perfect, but with survey research, we prefer close-ended questions most of the time. And here are some examples for close-ended questions that you can use on your own survey. The first type is you provide all the options. Let's say you ask people, what types of media you use to get news? Please check all that apply. Then you provide like TV, radio, print newspaper online, Facebook, Instagram, etc. And you can also do multiple choice, which means you still provide all the options, but they have to pick one. Then those choices should be mutually exclusive, and all the options should be available, like at least one category they can choose. So it should be exhaustive as well. And you can use semantic differentiation scales or Likert scales or ranking orders. Please don't use this one for your survey questions because ranking orders will be harder to deal with. So just forget about that. Try to use multiple choice or Likert scales because that way you can do the math easily. Semantic differentiation scales are great as well. Those 3 are all wonderful. And when you are trying to write your own questions, remember the first thing, be clear. You should write for a 9th or 10th grade level audience. Don't think about abstract scientific concepts that you want to show that you are expert. Don't do that. Just be clear and keep your questions short. Do not bore people with long questions. If people look at your survey, they realize all the questions are very long, they lose their patience very early. And please avoid the negatives as well, because sometimes people don't pay attention to not they will get confused and give you answers that's not correct at all. It doesn't reflect their true attitude or true behavior. So try to avoid negatives. Just make it easier for people to understand. It's the same as how to be clear. And avoid the double-barreled questions. Let's say this one. How much do you agree or disagree with raising Social Security benefits and increasing spending for the military? You see, there are actually two questions here. Whether people agree with raising Social Security benefits, and the other question is whether people agree with increasing spending for the military. But when you kind of put those two questions together, you're kind of assuming if people agree with raising Social Security benefits, they probably also agree that we should increase spending for the military, which is not true. People can easily want to raising Social Security benefits without wishing an increased spending for the military. So you don't want to put two questions together and force people to either agree with both or disagree with both. So this is what we call a double-barreled question. You should really avoid that. Make sure you only ask one question at a time. Separate them. That will make it clear as well. So you see, actually all those guidelines are the same. Just make your question clear and make sure that people can understand it easily. Next one, avoid leading or biased questions. When you are saying things like, how much do you agree that education is important? You're trying to push people to say that education is important because this is a socially desirable question. Of course, I want to say education is important. Or like the first example, if you frame voting as a patriotic duty, people will be more likely to say, yeah, I did, even if they didn't. So try not to put your bias into the question. Just ask people, did you vote? Make it simple, make it clear, and make it as bias-free as possible. The next one is avoid asking questions that are difficult to answer. Sometimes you want to ask people something really complicated, but people may not understand what's going on. So you want questions that everyone can answer. Don't ask, let's say, janitor what's his or her opinion on some philosophical question that's super abstract. You need a certain kind of training in philosophy to be able to understand that question and then answer it efficiently. Don't do that. Always keep in mind that your audience may only be able to read at a ninth or 10th grade level. And you want to ask questions that everyone can answer, so eventually your result will be relevant to most people. And also, don't ask questions that's too specific. Let's say 2 years ago, how many hours of TV did you watch every month? It's very hard. I don't even remember how many hours of TV I watched 2 years ago. So if you are making it so hard for people, they will just quit. They won't answer your survey at all. So try to make it easy and make it clear. And avoid false assumptions. Don't assume about things. Don't assume things about your audience that may not be true. Like, when did you start drinking alcohol? More common one I see from students a lot is, which social media platform do you use? It's possible that people don't use social media platform at all. If you include audience or include participants that's older or a lot younger or just nerd maybe, just don't assume people always do that. Or ask people, how much do you like Instagram? It's possible someone doesn't even have an Instagram account. Just because you use it and you like it, it doesn't mean all your audience are the same. So just try not to assume that. Always ask the first question, do you have an account? Do you like it? And then ask them, how much do you like it? And you can use skip pattern we're going to cover later to make sure that people who don't have accounts can answer following questions without answering the one like, if they don't even have an account, they can't really say how much they like it. And you should always avoid asking embarrassing questions unless it's really necessary. Sometimes income level can be really sensitive, sexual habits, drug habits, sometimes even religion is very sensitive, or even their health situation. If it's not really related to a topic, do not ask those questions, because these are the questions may just turn your participants away. They would just close the browser or say, I don't want to answer your questions anymore. So really think about what's necessary before you put this type of questions there. If you have to put them there because that's really related to your topic, put them at the end. Because once people get used to answering questions about themselves, they usually would answer more and more later. So don't start with super sensitive questions in the beginning. Try to get them comfortable, and once they start answering more and more, they may be able to answer the sensitive or embarrassing questions in the end. And also, your response options should match the question. And like we talked about before, those options should be mutually exclusive. Let's say if you ask people's party ID, you should ask them, at least in the United States, do you identify with Republican, Democrat, Green Party, or other? You don't want to ask a question that's so ambiguous. Let's say, how would you describe yourself? Happy, joyful, sad, other. So you see the happy and the joyful may be overlapped. So you don't want to use this kind of category. You just want to ask people in general, would you describe yourself as a happy person or unhappy person? Or neither. So these are the categories that's mutually exclusive. And you also need to offer options that are exhaustive. Everyone can answer the question, at least find one option that really can describe themselves. And you should have equal numbers of positive and negatives if possible. Let's say if I ask you how much do you agree or disagree with a statement, I always want to offer strongly disagree, disagree, neutral, agree, strongly agree. I will never only ask you strongly disagree, agree, neutral. You see, it's not balanced, the latter version. So just remember, balance your options well. It's also easier for people to see where they are when the scale is balanced. Have equal numbers among the positive and negatives. We covered this a little bit earlier. Be aware of social desirability bias. People will always over-report desirable behaviors. If you ask US adults if they voted or not in the last election, you will have an inflated number that more people will report that they voted compared to the actually voting number. So it's really common, and people will underreport undesirable behaviors. If you ask them how much time you wasted last week not doing work, just maybe binge watching some TV show, or how much you abused alcohol last month, they will always underreport the number. So just be aware of the social desirability bias, and you can always overcome social desirability bias by emphasizing anonymity, just saying your answer will be anonymous, and also phrase the question in a way that is safe face. You start with a statement saying, we know that sometimes things prevent individuals from voting, such as getting sick or running out of time. So did you vote? You kind of getting them into the situation like, see, we know people can't vote all the time, and we have excuses figured out for you. So just tell us the truth. People are more likely to give you the honest answer. Questionnaire design, you always introduce yourself, introduce purpose, and introduce any risk and benefits if there are any, and the time required. Tell people that what's the time you think it's going to take for them to finish the survey in the beginning, so they kind of know if they want to do it or not. If they figure out the survey is too long in the middle, they're more likely to quit. And emphasize that you're not selling anything, and give people clear directions. We will talk about skip pattern in the next video because it's more complicated, but so far you are already a half expert on survey design. Please stay with me, and I hope you will have fun writing your own survey questions.